Out with the swather, just doing a few things, cleaning up around the edges. And I'm happening upon one of the yards, and I run into the beekeeper making the final round of feed. So Carrie's dropping one tote of feed into all these bee yards, just giving these hives just that last little bit of syrup. So we have the last two totes. Might have to buy a little bit more syrup just to finish things off. The next week we're going to go around and just do a random weight assessment to see if we are indeed where we're supposed to be, and make our final decision whether or not we're going to give them any more than that. These pails are all done now. We'll pull them off. Clean up the yards and fully prepare things for winter. We haven't put these entrance reducers in yet. That should have been done a couple weeks ago, but Carrie's doing it this round. Just want to kind of look at that. So these bees are doing a fantastic job sticking these pails down onto the lid, so as you notice, there isn't any lids blown off, and so much so that the rodents don't seem to be able to pull them off as easy either, and for some reason they're not really gumming up the screens, so that's good. That is good. I wonder, I'll get Carrie to tip back 2 colonies. Do you have a hive tool? Do you mind tipping back? Let's tip back this one. That is stuck on there. You might have a hive tool on. There we go. Look at that propolis. They completely rimmed that pail with propolis holding it down. And, well, this one they have stuck the screen. Oh, not too bad. Let's tip these guys back to see what we've got. I'll just have to stand back a bit because we don't have smoke. I don't have a suit. It would be pissy. Oh. Oh, these guys are going to come at me. There's a box of bees. That cluster follows right down onto the bottom board. I like. Let's pick another one here. Just one more because I don't want to upset them too much. Which one should we tip back? That blue one. Let's tip back that blue one. That's probably a nuke, eh? Has no tag on it. So what is going on with that one? Who knows? We will see what's going on. Box of these. Look at that. Just love it. Cluster follows all the way down to the bottom. They're in a fairly good mood. But they still need a bit of smoke. That looks good. Okay, I'm going to carry on with my duties, and I'll let you carry on with your duties. We'll finish off the day. Puts me in a good mood when I see bees like that. I'm out cutting my pollinator plots. This one is a strip that I sowed down on the edge of one of our fields. We grew oats down here, and I grew a little strip full of oats, which is sowed late in the season, sunflowers, canola, and phacelia. So I'm making a round to clean up all these little strips, all these little plots, and I'm cutting all this biomass down. I'm going to come back with the baler today and bale it up. I'm not too worried about baling up tough bales because it's going to go straight into our silage pile. We have the silage crew coming this weekend to cut corn, and I'm going to bring these bales back and chop it straight into the silage pile. And the sunflower makes an incredible silage feed for animals. Just the amount of protein in the heads, and the plant is palatable. I'll show you one of the strips that I have within one of the fields we're grazing, and I didn't fence off this one little, pollinator plot within that field which we're grazing, and the cattle have completely chewed it right down. They just love it. So they consumed everything I had growing within that pollinator plot. That one's cleaned up. This one I'm just making use of all the biomass, and we're going to turn it into feed. So it's extremely important that when we're doing these little projects that we follow through, and we have to go, if we're going to establish all these little plots, we have to make sure that we follow through and clean up all these little pollinator plots, because the last thing we want is these things just to linger on and become an eyesore, turn into weed patches, or just become a nuisance. The other thing is we have to be very conscious on incorporating potential disease problems, right? As we farm our fields, we're trying to control all those variables. Our farm hires an agronomist, independent agronomist, and we typically hire him in to help us with the chemistries that we use on our lands to grow the crops. He also gives us advice on crop rotations and disease management and all this stuff that we need to know to be able to manage our crops properly. Our agronomist is extremely encouraged by seeing the efforts I'm putting into little projects like this, because he's all about biodiversity and how to manage our lands in a sustainable fashion. That's kind of one of the reasons why we hired him. And he recognizes these little pollinator plots as being a huge plus, and probably, maybe one of the things that should be adopted across the countryside. But at the same time, he's always reinforcing with every action there's a reaction, and we have to acknowledge the disadvantages these also provide to the crops that we're trying to grow within the area, because the grain farmer sees all this as being weeds, as being a challenge. So he says, if you're going to do all this kind of stuff, you're going to put this effort into growing these pollinator plots, you have to put the effort to make sure that you manage the problems associated with them. And that is one of those ways we can manage those problems is by coming around and removing that material. You remove that material, you remove all the diseases harbored within or on the plant, and it pretty much solves all the problems. So that's what I'm doing. I'm turning all this pollinator food directly into cattle food.